This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
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 Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout. Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swintoski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. So it's mid-November, and here in Pennsylvania, our wild brown trout have entered their spawning phase. This is an interesting year because we're in drought conditions, kind of serious drought conditions. These low flows have not only affected the timing of the spawn, but the flows have affected where the trout find viable spawning grounds too. So we can watch more about the trout habits in these low water years than in high water years. Now, back in October of 2023 with episode 2 of season 9 of this Troutbitten podcast, the guys and I recorded a podcast titled Trout Fishing and the Spawn. So you can go give that one a listen because in that one, our primary focus was the ethics of fishing during spawning season. And then we're not going to rehash that here, but back then we wanted to have that conversation because it's one that anglers tend to have very different opinions on sometimes. So let me summarize our beliefs, our conclusions during that podcast with this. We believe that in many, maybe most wild trout streams, fishing during the spawn is fine, as long as we try to minimize our impact on actively spawning fish. We also do not cast for spawning fish, and we kind of appreciate being on the water and witnessing the whole process while, honestly, trying not to be part of it. Basically, in most trout streams, it's pretty easy to avoid the reds and stay away from the spawners if you're educated about where and how trout spawn, which is what we want to do here tonight, talk about that. And then it's up to you to have the self-discipline not to fish for the spawners and to give those trout their space to do their thing. Now, all that said, we should also acknowledge that there are some trout streams where so much of the spawning happens in one location that it would be impossible to fish, or almost impossible to fish those areas without disturbing their efforts. And in many of those locations, the state fish commissions shut them down during spawning season anyway. But one more time, in the majority of trout waters, it's not hard to stay off the reds and give trout their space. With that in mind, tonight, we're here to talk through the process of spawning trout. Which trout actually spawn? Where do they do it? What parts of the river? What's it look like? How can you really tell what the red is? When do they spawn? How can that be predicted? What does the whole process look like? And how can we give those trout their space, but fish the rest of the river? So first, let's say hi to the Troutbitten guys. Austin Dando, in a little late, had some things to take care of. Here he is.
Dropping the kids off.
I'm here.
What's up, bud?
What's going on?
Using the baby backpack. You sent me a picture.
Yeah, getting some mileage in with it.
I like that.
It's great. Brooke really loves it. She kicks her feet and smiles and looks around. We were just out walking along one of her favorite streams, and then visited the Christmas tree farm the other day. And yeah, she's very content in there.
That's super cool.
Did she pick out the Christmas tree?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Get a Christmas tree already?
Hey, look behind me, guys. What do I have right there?
That's a fake one.
That's true, Dom.
It is that one's.
He's got a
fake.
nutcracker back there too.
Do I? What? No, that's Santa Claus, bud.
Okay, if you say so.
Do you want me to give you a close-up? do you want to go to that? Matt, do you have a baby backpack? Matt Grobe, Montana, Matt.
Yeah.
Do you?
They only last, enjoy it while you can, young love.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to be in there much longer.
It's
a short-lived
3.5.
spot. Yeah, it's like less. As soon as they start walking, they're like, get me out of here. I mean, you can get them in it a little bit, but like they start wanting to be on their own.
We did plenty of trips where they'd be, half in, half out. Like you say, put them down for a while, but then you can go further because you can cart them along for more than half the trip. But,
Sure.
I'm not the biggest, strongest guy. And it would get to the point for both my boys, I was like, okay, I just, it wears me out. You can only carry him so far. And then when I had, Joey was older and then Aiden's in the backpack then, and the whole thing just became like, okay, it's time to put it away. We handed it off to my sister-in-law. I love that though. I miss those days, Austin. Like Matt said, enjoy it.
Yeah, that's good. It's good.
Bill Dell, do you ever remember being in a baby backpack? He's trying to think of something.
He's on mute is what
He's
he is.
also on mute. He learned that from Trevor last week.
Dang it.
Come on, man.
IT guy.
Amateur stuff.
Yeah.
I do not. I remember my dad taking me fishing young and constantly being yelled at to stay away from the river because I was going to fall in it. It was true. I would fall in looking for crayfish or something.
Oh, nice. I fell in every trip. Well, not, almost drowned, fall in, but we've talked about it. I used to go over my hip boots every time. My dad would get mad at me. My uncle would be like, you did it again. What are you doing? It's 35 degrees out here. It's April 10th or whatever. You did it again. Oh,
slow learner.
The rough days.
Hip boots.
My first fishing boots were those, like, I call them the farm boots. They're like knee high, like just rubber boots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So can't get far out in the river in that, but I tried.
Yeah, just keep going over them. All right, you guys ready? Let's do it. We don't have Dr. Trevor Smith to, give us all the science, but Deli, you got it, right?
Yeah, I looked at some science stuff,
He did the research. Deli's the research guy tonight.
I know. It's all downhill from here, so I apologize, everyone.
Honestly, I mean, there's only so much science necessary in a way. And I think what we'd really like to do is kind of put our fisherman's perspective on it, right? We've all been around plenty of spawning seasons. And we can tell you what we see. We've been around a little bit, not just in this area too. And again, tell you what we see. So let's talk about the process of trout spawning, right? I guide a lot of experienced anglers, really. And I'm still very surprised. I mean, this time of year, every year, I get anglers who say, show me what a red looks like because I'm not sure. I'm like, really? And I'm like, but you're telling me you've fished in the fall. And many people just don't necessarily know what they look like. We start talking about this process that we'll talk about tonight. And people are, whatever. I don't think they have a lot of confidence in not only what the red looks like, but they don't have much of an understanding about the whole process at all. I mean, whatever. There's plenty of room for education. Let's kind of talk it through. Let's take care of that, right? Let's start with this. Let's talk about what triggers the spawning process, because they weren't spawning in August and September or even early October around here. But of course, other places are going to spawn at different times. What gets them going?
So we'll start with brown trout because that's the main thing I research because that's the majority of what our fish in the area are. So it seems like the main trigger seems to be water temperature. Water temperature's got to drop somewhere in the mid 40s or low 40s. There's got to be sustainable flow. I'll call this an observation, is I think there has to be a good amount of water in locations that are conducive to spawn, meaning like locations that are like there's a lot of gravel.
Yeah.
In some of these low water years, there's not a lot of water or sometimes any water in some of those low gravelly spots.
Yeah, we were texting in our group the other day. That's why I said let's go over this, because I theorize, and from what I've seen, along the lines of what you're saying, Deli, I feel like, okay, temperature is probably the main thing. I think light conditions, too, signal a lot of things out there. That's the predictable thing. We mentioned this one other time on a podcast. I think light probably triggers a lot of things in wildlife. But then, light will, fading light, let's say fading daylight hours, lesser and lesser daylight hours, probably triggers, okay, here's the time when we might start spawning. And then, like you said, Del, okay, if 42, let's say 42 would be the temperature for brown trout to really want to start spawning, they might go, all right, we really like to do it now. But then, like you're saying, if the flows aren't right, I mean, I feel like I've seen them wait. This year, they were waiting. They're really going now. They're starting to. We'll talk about the difference between building reds and spawning on actual dropping the eggs and stuff too. But the whole process is in full swing. But it was not last week, not from what I saw. And I'm kind of all over the region here. So I feel like when the water is low, like you said, a lot of the places where they normally spawn and the gravel is just right, there's not enough flow.
Or there's not any.
Or any flow. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've seen them wait. And I feel like the fish are going, okay, let's just wait till we get a little bit more water. Maybe rain's coming. And then we'll finally get our chance to spawn. And then eventually, you still don't get any rain. And they're going to do it anyway. They're going to find the gravel somewhere. So I've been wearing Tajima polarized lenses for over a year now. And I can tell you they've changed my vision and my comfort level on the water. First, I chose a progressive prescription and I haven't looked back. Previously, I was carrying readers on the stream, but by putting my prescription in the glasses, I put my Tajima lenses on at the beginning of the day, and I never take them off. Second, my go-to lens choice is Tajima's Yellow-Green 40 Silver Mirror, because with their high light transmission, they're perfect for the cloudy, low-light days that we all love so much. On brighter days, I choose Tajima's Brown 15 Green Mirror because they block more light and eliminate eye strain when the sun is strong. Prescription or not, Tajima takes any of your existing frames and puts the finest polarized lens technology into them for a fraction of the cost of a new pair, with purpose-built lens tints and colors designed for fly fishing and matched for your conditions. Tajima's service is also second to none. My Tajima lenses aren't an accessory. They are a key piece of daily gear. Send in your own frames today. Visit tajima-direct.com. That's TAJIMA-direct.com. Upgrade your lenses and see what you've been missing. Tactical Fly Fisher was founded by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson in 2015 to make the gear and knowledge he'd gained at the World Fly Fishing Championship available to all anglers. Tactical Fly Fisher's goal is simple. They sell the latest and best fly fishing and fly tying equipment and help you learn how to use it through their videos and books. Visit their store at tacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TB15 to get 15% off your first order. That code excludes rods, reels, tying vices, waders, and boots.
The other thing I think is, like, we talk about that temperature, and so I think that that temperature, the streams achieve that temperature differently throughout Pennsylvania and throughout, you know, the whole United States. Like, I'm guessing, Matt, from your perspective, I think spawning is probably a lot earlier in Montana because that stream temp gets there sooner than what ours does.
Matt?
Yeah, I think it's, I've had the ability to kind of fish all over the place in late September, October, late November. And there's a total correlation from what I've seen with the stream temperatures and when trout spawn. The freestoners out here, to your point, Dell, I'll see, freestone streams out here with active reds, the first week in October. Those regions, it just gets kicked, it gets going. And then in spring creeks and tailwaters where the temperature is regulated, you'll have fish spawning through Thanksgiving out here. On some of our tailwaters, just because the water temp doesn't hit those low 40s until later in the month. And so to me, that's the prime example of how water temperature is the main influence on when trout are spawning.
Sure. Yeah. 2 months worth of spread there.
Totally. Yeah. You can, it's a good 8 to 10 weeks out here. And I've seen fish spawning in early December out here. Well, the closer you get to the bottom release dam, that's where the spawning is. And then at these streams are 100 miles long and you can get down to the mouth of the river and they're spawning in, second week in October. You can watch it move upstream almost like a hatch. The spawning.
That's really interesting.
And it's like clockwork. And I think it just so happens that it coincides with less light. The light starts dying down. But from what I see, it's very much temperature triggered. There's been studies out here. We've had poor brown trout recruitment in certain watersheds. It's starting to get better, but their studies have found that low water years like you guys are experiencing definitely have a negative impact on the fry recruitment, just because there's gravel that's exposed. Eggs have a harder time surviving. There's a lot of different contributions that go to that, because we had a couple back-to-back drought years and the trout population dipped every one of those bad falls. So it'll be interesting for you guys to see that, right? To see, is there a weird age class gap?
Yeah, right.
And you guys fish enough that you'll be able to see that, I would bet.
Yeah. Firsthand again. Yeah.
I'd be interested to know, maybe you guys have seen any studies on this, but when we do have low water years like this and, the regular spawning gravel isn't available to them, you guys seen anything reported on how far trout will travel to spawn, like outside of their maybe home area?
I mean, trout, correct me if I'm wrong, they smell out, and that's not just salmon, right? I mean, the trout smell out where they were, what tributaries they were born in to go back and spawn.
I don't know if brown trout do that here or not.
Yeah, I don't know. We were talking about that in our text, right? Somebody mentioned that.
They do.
And I don't know.
I know they tend to go back to where they were born. It's just kind of like it's a trait they have.
But like if there's nothing there, how much further will they go?
Right.
My theory is they wait to spawn there. And that's why we don't see the reds until later sometimes, is that it's not like, it's not like they
might not have any other option.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my theory, is that they're not going to continue to travel upriver to find the right substrate. They're just going to wait until
they just stop.
Yeah. The homeland is got some water and ready to go.
Yeah. Maybe that's why. Maybe they got their favorite spot. Maybe they come back there every year. I've told you guys, you remember last year when I sent you a picture of a really big trout? I guess it wasn't much of a picture, but I was all excited.
Oh, yeah.
It's a place where I walk my dog for 4 nights out of the week, and it's dark by the time I'm getting home and stuff, so I'm still taking the dog for a walk. Yeah, it's spawning season, and those reds are predictable every year where they're going to be. Like I said last week, just wasn't seeing them. This week I'm seeing them, and boy, they did quick work to build the reds. And anyway, I saw that big fish last year, and I'm real curious to see if I'll see him again.
Right.
Because the water's going to be low enough. I mean, that's one good thing about the low water. You can really see what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. Matt, you said they, will go up in the tribs. I mean, we should acknowledge that. Around here, they do a lot of their spawning in the main rivers. Basically, I feel like if they have the gravel, then they spawn there. And, there are a couple of our main rivers. I was on one yesterday. There's very few reds. Well, I didn't see any yesterday. Not one. But the tribs of that, basically in that same watershed, in the same area, they're all over. No matter necessarily the size of the river, it has to do with, the gravel. Is the gravel right? I feel like they'll spawn in the main river. If not, then they got to travel. Well, and that would be back to the homeland, because I don't think the gravel changes that much from year to year. The actual perfect positioning of it, the exact positioning of it, could really change during floods or something. But if you don't have the right gravel size, then like brown trout can't spawn there. If you don't have the right gravel size for rainbow trout, they can't spawn there. Should we cover that too?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. So when I was doing the research, the reason that the brown trout are spawning, so they're looking for like a moderately fast area that has gravel, that's kind of shallow. And so the reason behind that is so that the eggs have a lot of oxygen. So the eggs can absorb that oxygen and it'll help the fish. To elaborate on the gravel size, like some rivers, I guess that's one thing. Like if you're going to go fish a big bouldery section, or something that has a bunch of river rock that's the size of your hand,
slate or something,
there's not going to, most likely there's not going to be fish spawning in that region. And so that's why we say, hey, you can fish during the spawn, and those are areas to look for to avoid being anywhere near where fish are spawning.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to avoid. I was always told, I read it in a couple places, whatnot, I've definitely seen this, brown trout needs something like at least quarter, and then even like silver dollar size rocks, much bigger than
I've heard like pea to golf ball size or something.
And I've heard pea gravel though is what the rainbow trout need. Do you see that, Matt? Like pea size, literal, like pea sized gravel, smaller gravel than browns. Yep. And I remember talking to actually a fish commission employee that once told me, the reason we don't have wild rainbows, or hardly any wild rainbows in Pennsylvania, is we don't have the right substrate. We don't have this pea gravel. You look around, it's true. Like we just don't have that. Yeah. We got a lot of that brown trout gravel.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen it, I get to see 2 spawn phases, one now and then again in the spring. And the areas where those reds get built out are totally different. Between the rainbows and the browns, not all. Like there's some reds in certain areas that I carry over. Yep. That are like, I know, the browns typically like the side channel in the fall, and then there again in the spring you have a run of rainbows up in that zone. But to piggyback on the substrate is one, but the pH level is another issue, and that's one of the other main reasons why rainbows don't flourish in Pennsylvania, because that pH really deteriorates the eggs. They're less tolerant to pH levels that are as high as you guys typically have, where brown trout eggs, not so much, right? They can tolerate that pH level.
Do you know where the brook trout pH level is? Is it closer to browns or rainbows?
It's closer to rainbows. I mean, just because look at where those brookies have to flourish. They're in the most pristine water, underdeveloped water most of the times. Dell, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's typically where you find your brook trout, is in that less developed, cleanest water.
Yeah, there's a couple exceptions. I found some pretty orange streams, meaning they've got a lot of AMD that have some brook trout.
Sure.
But yeah, I would say typically, 90% of the brook trout I'm finding are in, remote areas that are the most pristine water around.
Well, and then they get competed out by the brown trout. Like, that's a fact, right?
Yeah.
Like, brown trout out compete those brook trout and push those brook trout out of the system to where they're just they're more sensitive. The brown trout are known to, to do that. And then, like, vice versa, brook trout are known to dominate, cutthroat habitat. Different species definitely can influence, where some of these other trout are spawning on top of the substrate and on top of the pH level stuff.
So I did look up. So brook trout do spawn in that same water temperature range of like 42 to 45. Okay. And so that kind of makes sense as why, brown trout are typically bigger. And so that's why they would probably push out the brook trout, is because, brook trout might start to spawn or try to spawn in that same time frame, and the brown trout's more king of the hole.
So I think we're going to see the similarities, regardless of the trout species, for how they spawn. There's some similarities, but differences in the gravel size we're talking about and the pH. That's interesting. Seem to be pretty similar with water temperature, you're saying. Let's talk about this substrate, the gravel. Why do they need that gravel? Anybody want to explain why they need the right size gravel, or what they do with that gravel?
Yeah, so when a trout needs to have a suitable habitat to lay its eggs, and what they'll do is during the spawn they'll sort of clean an area of gravel more or less. So that's why you'll see bright patches on the bottom of stream beds. That's actually the trout using the bottom of its stomach and its body to remove any sort of covering among the substrate, to clean it off and to build what they call, a bed or a red. And when the trout lays its eggs, it actually covers those eggs back up and provides, a structure, a place to protect them so that they can grow over time and eventually hatch. But it's supposed to be, a bit of a sanctuary for them. And, it's where that good, clean, cold, oxygenated water has to have access to them, like Bill was saying, with something that's not too deep, that has some good flow, but isn't overly exposed.
Right on. So the female makes the red. Is that correct?
Yes.
And like you said, rubbing its belly on the rocks, fanning its tail. When I was younger, or let's say young in the game, I thought that, like other species, that the trout picked up rocks with their mouth and then built the reds. Because, I don't know.
Like you see a bird building a nest or something.
Other species do that, right? You've seen piles of rocks, right?
Yeah. Fall fish do that.
I was going to say, I think fall fish and other species with like sucker mouths, the pointed down mouths.
I didn't know
carp.
fall fish did that.
Yeah, dude.
That's cool.
Yeah, you've seen the nests, reds again.
Yeah.
Of just piles of rocks. And I'd seen those a lot. I grew up in more warm water than cold water. And when I started to understand what a trout red was, I was like, oh, same thing. And I knew they weren't piled up as much, but boy, it does look like kind of a pile of rocks sometimes. Or, I know this oval shape that we're often talking about. Just side note, what do you think? 2 feet long, 1 foot wide, kind of at the smallest, and then it can be a lot bigger.
You know what it reminds me most of is a golf divot. Like, if you think about it, like they're cutting a little groove in there, like, you're pitching wedge. And but it's like, if you were to swing, a 2 foot wide golf club. In how, from a visual standpoint, you've got dark all around it, and then where they're cleaning the gravel, it's going to look it's going to be shaded much lighter.
Yeah, right on.
You're trying to visually see it.
I've actually seen them as big as 80 to 100 yards long.
Yards? Holy hell.
That's amazing.
Did Sloop show you that one?
No, but it's you'll like Sloop? This one. I'll throw in another terminology. So a lot of the trout that we're creating, that annually create this red, it's well known, were triploids.
No kidding.
Right?
So that means they can't reproduce, correct?
Correct. But they still act like they go through the motions, right? Yeah. And so that in this particular area, it's not unethical. Whether you think it's unethical or not, a lot of people will fish right over the reds for the triploids because they're not they're not doing anything. And Dell, you fished that before, yeah.
Dell's like, can I come out?
Yeah.
So they still try? Do they try to spawn, or do they make a bed?
No, they try to spawn.
Because I've seen stocked bows doing that before, as well on our streams.
Doesn't have to be a wild trout to spawn.
Right.
And like you're saying, a lot of trout try to spawn, but don't. Like Austin's saying, we'll see rainbow trout around here are almost always stocked. And you're saying, Austin, you see them trying to spawn, you're like, well, that's fruitless, buddy. You know, we have a lot of fall spawning rainbows too, right? Which is odd because they're the wild
I've seen
ones.
that before, and
we have that out here too.
Okay, so it's not just stocked ones that try to do it,
right? There's some weird like fall run rainbows.
They're all dumb
out here. At least that's what I've heard, right? That they come in and they try to.
They see the brown trout doing it. I think
they're more lake. They're lake fish.
Hey, they're doing it.
They're just a horny fish.
It's all interesting, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of understand it as much as we can. Again, I've said, like, you don't really know about it until you see it, though. Either you can read about it. I guess you could watch a lot of videos and learn quite a bit. Good anglers know that a reliable fly line can mean everything, but replacing fly lines every season, that adds up. It's costly, it's wasteful, and now it's unnecessary because Restore Line has created the ultimate repair solutions. Restore Line offers products to repair damaged fly lines, to splice fully broken fly lines, and to add a new loop to the end of any fly line. Restore Line's easy-to-use products extend your fly line's life without compromising performance, while also cutting down your environmental impact. So don't toss out your fly line just because it's worn. Restore it, renew it, and keep fishing with confidence. Restore Line, innovation for anglers who care. Learn all about it at restoreline.com. Since 2010, Smith Creek has designed innovative guide tough gear for serious anglers. Introducing the new Fly View chest pack system, Smith Creek's most advanced accessory yet. Built from marine-grade aluminum and lightweight PE foam, the Fly View is rugged, modular, and made to keep up with you on the water. Fly View's lid features a built-in 3x Fresnel magnifier, giving you a clearer view when you're tying on fine tippet, especially if your eyesight isn't quite what it used to be. With 5 swappable tray styles and an external lid patch with a magnetic fly holder, the Fly View chest pack can comfortably hold well over 100 flies, all in easy reach. Spend less time tying and more time casting with Fly View. Visit them online at smithcreek.co for more information. Well, you're talking about, can I go back to that, Matt? 80, you said 80 to 100 yards long, like basically almost the size as as long as a football field.
Yep.
I've always felt when I see, well, I've never seen that many. I call it a trout brothel, where there's like red after red after red, and this red connects to the next one, and it kind of seems like a really long patch of a red. I've never seen that long. But, I mean, it's like a whole bunch put together. Yes,
it's just thousands that are doing it at one time.
Just going at it, right?
L-I-V-I-N.
That's right. L-I-V.
You love that.
So we're talking about the trout that cleans off the gravel. We kind of agreed it's usually, well, it is the female. How big is that female usually? Let's go back to like browns and rainbows. It's not 10 inches, right? I guess let's start with that. It's not the small fish that do this.
I think on some streams it is.
Maybe it's age.
Yeah, like I think it has more to do with age than size. Because some streams...
But that's why I wanted to go back to brown trout.
But I'm saying on some creeks, the average size is small, right? Like typically.
Good point.
So I feel like I want to say what... And Dom, I think you got that book, The Complete Brown Trout.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure he references in there. It's like after a year and a half, those fish try to spawn.
I guess I was kind of being biased toward our streams when I was thinking that. For me, it's not the 8-10 inch fish that we see spawning in these rivers. It's like they're not really allowed.
The Google says that brown trout need to be 2 to 4 years old to be spawning. All
right. So, and then from what I've seen, the female, especially the one kind of creating the bed, I think that's the one in charge of the whole thing. And I know one female will go take over another red. We should talk about that in a second. And I'm not suggesting that they're just staying in one place the whole time. We should talk about that. If you can really watch the process, I feel like that female is often pretty big. All right, so we're talking about how they build the reds. We understand that. And then what I see is either as the female's doing that or as things are kind of established, you kind of see the males jockeying for position. How do you want to call it that? Like you've seen them fighting, pushing each other around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very similar to any type of nature.
Yeah.
When nature spawns, whether it's big bucks fighting or big elk fighting, it's big bucks, brown trout, competing for the right to fertilize those eggs.
Yeah.
And it can totally get heated, and you can see the scars. I've seen them literally bite at tails. Yeah. It can become very competitive, and you would think that some of those fish wear out just like any other, and then they move on to try to find an easier, maybe the pounder female. She's on her bed and she's easier, right?
It's good. So the males are like fighting each other. Like we said, I've seen them have quite a few scars. Some trout are pretty beat up after that. The males.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see multiple, sometimes competing right next to the female, right?
Yeah. I think it's neat. Again, I just think it's neat to see it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You'll often catch, let's say in January, whatever, and they've been done spawning for quite a while. But that female, especially the female, will still have a very kind of rubbed up belly, dark,
black,
it's kind of stained. Yeah, black almost. And you know what the female was doing. And then the males will still have that white scarring on them. Sometimes part of their tail missing, like you said, Matt. I think it's neat. It's kind of cool to catch a trout and kind of know what it has been through.
Do you remember last year, Dom, when we were fishing in February? Or, it seemed like we were almost catching spawners up until there looked like, maybe not spawners, but fish that looked like they recently spawned really late in the year last year.
Agreed. We didn't even bring up color.
Because I'm thinking about the timing of all this and when they start and how much water we had last year, much more normal year than this.
Agreed.
I wonder, just generally curiosity, what caused that late spawning season or that extended spawning season last year into well past what we normally see.
And even around here, I noticed some of the brook trout streams, it seems like the fish are spawning later than, like I used to think November was the spawning month.
Yeah.
Or like for brook trout, it was like October, it was it was late October. And so
it could be browns too, depending on the year, right?
Yeah. And so I just feel like anymore our falls are a lot warmer. And so I'm wondering if everything is now kind of like stepped back, right? Because I had I had texted my friend. I was like, hey, I was up at camp, I fished. And he was like, oh, I thought all the fish were spawning. And I'm like, no. I'm like, I saw, this was 2 weekends ago. And I was like, I saw like 3 reds.
Yeah.
Well, you said it at the beginning, Deli. I mean, you hit that temperature range with what they like to do. And so if that gets pushed back because you guys have 60, 70 degree weathers and the nighttime lows are different, like that temperature is the water temperature is not going to drop. So that's going to push the spawn back more so than, it varies, right? And I see that here to some degree, like some Octobers and Halloweens. I mean, it's absolutely frigid here, and the spawn is done by Halloween.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just outside of those big tailwaters where you can get up and that water's regulated. But I think that's, if you pay attention, you start taking data and you start looking at year in and year out when that happens. I bet you any money, if you look at the temperature of those streams on USGS, you'll find a direct correlation between when those reds pop up and the water temp.
I bet you're right.
Yeah. I guess a lot of people are like, oh, well, November's spawning month, and so I'm going to start fishing in December. But I feel like on some of these streams, like the spawn, it's still kind of in the full swing almost till Christmas sometimes, depending on the year.
I totally agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it seems like Thanksgiving is sometimes when it's like really getting going.
Yeah.
Or, maybe where it's peak. That's what I always kind of compare it to.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm with you, Del. I think it's definitely gotten pushed back at least a week. A lot of our hatches are that way too. Or they're earlier, I should say.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, spring hatches are often earlier. Point. I keep bringing us back to this process. I like a good conversation here, but so the males are fighting for position, right? And then, when it's time to spawn, you'll see the females kind of tilt sideways. That's the way I put it anyway. You've seen the females kind of turn or tilt and drop those eggs, and then the males fertilize those eggs right behind her, right?
When you're talking about this process, so one thing to note is bigger fish have a much higher success rate from what I understand.
Okay. Why is that? Do you know, or why do you think?
Probably just the ability to protect the nest, maybe.
Well, yeah,
that's as long as Trevor isn't throwing headbangers on him.
Throw him under the bus because he's not here.
Yeah, right.
Trevor has a habit of just raping the reds.
He does.
He just fishes the articulated beads.
A lot of doctors are like that. Think they got special privileges,
Surgical precision.
Articulated.
Do you ever fish that fly? The articulated beads during the fall?
I don't know
It's the only time I fish streamers.
This guy.
Nice.
Maybe, Bill, they have more success rate too because they've got more eggs and more, is it milt? What do they call it?
Yeah, I think you're probably right there.
That's got to be part of it. But the protection is part of it too, I bet you. All right, the eggs are fertilized, and if the eggs are lucky, then they get to get down in the cracks of that, in the rocks, and they're going to stay there until, in our area, they say like early March when the eggs will hatch. Austin, I found it interesting. You said that the female will cover up the eggs. How does she do that?
I believe the same way she builds the nest.
Fanning the tail again.
Yeah, just moving with her tail and her body and moving those pieces of gravel back over.
Oh, moving the gravel over. I was thinking about how she'll clean the rocks, to get the silt or whatever off, but there's no silt. You're talking about actually moving the gravel again to get the eggs to kind of settle into those cracks.
Yeah, that was always my interpretation.
Interesting.
Did you guys ever see Dave Whitlock's, I forget what he called them. He built these cages to store eggs in to help repopulate certain streams that were having, I guess, struggles with eggs successfully going throughout spawn and hatching and becoming fry.
Okay.
Where he would actually take these small cages, fill them with the appropriate size gravel, like halfway, and then put eggs, cover the eggs up in the rest of the gravel, and then embed them into the stream bottom as sort of a protective barrier. Just curious if you guys ever saw that study where he really had a significant impact on trout populations.
Was that written or was that a video?
No, that was a written study. There may be videos that go along with it, but yeah, pretty interesting stuff.
That is. All this stuff's cool to me.
That's cool.
So once the eggs are fertilized, let's say the female kind of pushes that gravel back over it or resettles that gravel. Let's say the eggs are there. You guys have seen, well, once we believe the spawn is mostly over, you've seen males. As I understand it, it's the males who kind of protect those reds for a while. Have you seen that? Do you believe that's what's going on?
Oh, I've seen it where it's clear that's all that's on those, those reds is hook jaw dominant males. You know what I mean? And there's no other fish because you can see anyone. Right. Most of the time, you can see those fish on those beds. You can just clear as day. There's single kiped up browns.
Yeah,
on those beds. Yeah, and that's when that section. Right, is weaning off the spawn like it's the last stage. They definitely don't. I don't know how much we want to get into this, but it's like in that zone. Like you guys see fish actively spawning for 4 to 6 weeks in the same area. Is that pretty accurate to say?
You mean in the same general area?
Yeah,
even the same red. Yeah.
So that's a long time. I mean,
I think so too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you get fish that come on, and it's like. I told you out here I've seen, reds in early October, and he come back 4 or 5 weeks later, and you're like, oh wow, like there's still a couple doing their thing, right? Like it's pretty crazy. But that's kind of like anything in nature, right? There's pre-spawns, post-spawns, heart of the spawn, and that will happen. Maybe that the water temperature is 50 or 49, right on that fringe, it starts triggering the youthfulness and the smaller fish. And then when it's super prime, you get your bigger, mature fish that typically don't mess with, things until it's game on, right? They don't waste any energy. That part of it is very interesting to me to watch year in and year out.
Yeah. You can learn a lot about what's in your river by observing all that activity, and especially like what size fish potentially are in your river.
Yes.
When you have the chance to observe one out in the open that maybe doesn't spend its life out in the open, you can really get an idea of what your stream may hold. And, not all fish in the river spawn. That's worth mentioning too. So you see one fish of some higher caliber than you're used to, chances are there's probably a couple more of them. around, but it's just always eye-opening to me, where are those fish the rest of the time of the year? That's why I talk about or think about traveling sometimes. Like some of the fish that end up in our smaller streams don't live there all year long. So, where were they born? Maybe that's where they were born, and that's why they end up there every year. It's interesting.
It is. It's inspiring. You know what's in there. Now you can go catch it. At least you wonder why you don't catch it.
It may be gone in a week, but you saw it for
That's true, but we know these watersheds really well. So
you might know where it went. Yeah.
Exactly.
They have some really cool tag studies out here.
I bet.
They've done
I'd love to have
fish have moved 30 to 60 miles.
60. No kidding.
Yep.
He's got the big old rivers.
Yeah, I mean, they're big rivers, but I mean, 60 miles, they've tagged fish and they've pinged them and they're like, wow, this came from this zone 2 months ago.
Is that a rainbow?
Right?
Is that a rainbow or a brown?
Rainbows and browns.
I bet both.
Yeah. But especially with the tributaries, right? Like if they're traveling upstream, and there's a lot of ebb and flow, and I think maybe we as fishermen tend to think that, those fish, some fish stay in certain areas all the time, but not all fish do. Some of these fish definitely travel, whether it's thermal related, it's spawning related, and then things calm down and they're maybe at home for 5 or 6 months and then they kind of do their thing. I see that a lot out here.
Mm-hmm. Matt, you were talking about how the spawning process will go on for 4 to 6 weeks. What do you guys think? I mean, so we see that these areas, and sometimes one red will be active. As I understand it, multiple pairs might use the same red. And as I understand it too, I mean, this is kind of what I see. It's hard to tell if it's the same fish, but I feel like the same fish maybe will even spawn for a while and then just stop doing it for a couple days, 3-4 days, I don't know. Then it'll be back, then it'll spawn for a while. It's not like the females drop all their eggs at once. We know that. Right? Not all at once. And they'll spawn, then go, nearby. It could be 100 yards downstream, or else it could be 10 feet to the left, And then they go eat for a while, rest, whatever. You're talking about that. There's a lot of energy exerted, and they might go through this process for 4 to 6 weeks. It's not like they're not eating anything.
Sure. I even see it, Dom. I've seen what you're talking about, but I've also seen it to the effect of all congregating in a deep hole, and then when the water temperature gets up to a certain spot, literally watching fish swim out of deep holes to get back into the shallows to start spawning. Like I've seen that with my own eyes, like banging them out of deep holes, like, fair game, deep water
fishing.
And then literally like watching fish taking off and swimming into the shallows when the day heats up a little bit. Whether they were staging in there, recovering in there, like I don't know what they were doing, but I was always amazed. I was shocked at that particular area and watching that with my own eyes, like, whoa, all of a sudden all these fish are coming out of that deep water that I was just fishing and they're starting to spawn again.
Yeah. We're back and forth.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Every trout in the river doesn't spawn. It's actually a pretty low percentage of trout that are spawning. However, I feel like almost every trout in the river is affected by the spawn. Like they're not going to miss the chance. Let's say the 10-inch fish is not going to miss the chance to go eat free eggs. They're down below those reds, right?
Sure.
We got to figure most of those eggs don't make it safely into the reds, right into the nest. And so those eggs are rolling around. Trout certainly eat their own eggs. And maybe even other avenues, opportunities, areas are open to, let's say, mid-sized fish because the biggest ones are out there, exposed in some shallower water. And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like every trout isn't going to miss that event. I also will find smaller trout that are probably not going to be spawning. So let's say they're 2 years old, Bill, and not to that. What'd you say, 2 to 4?
Yeah, so 2 to 4. Yeah.
Anyway, I think all those trout are affected. It's like a hatch. Well, it's even more important than a mayfly hatch, right? Trout aren't going to miss what's going on under there.
I'd be curious to hear what you guys say in your experience with pre-spawn, right? We talked about the spawn. Like, do you notice fish congregating in those areas where you see all the reds and grouping up and having any type of like noticeably different type of fishing leading up to that first red or two?
You mean like a staging event?
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like I could say that I don't necessarily know that they were in like one spot right down there, below reds, but I feel like they build the reds, but they haven't started spawning yet. Like that female's cleaning the eggs and the other trout will be around. And I feel like in that case, I'm finding more active trout, let's say more willing to respond to streamers. Again, this is pre-spawn, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably the males that are maybe kind of getting geared up, ready to, maybe even they are starting to fight a little bit or whatever we're calling that, be aggressive toward each other.
Sure.
And I think we all kind of look forward to that October, that October streamer bite. Pretty predictable every year. And I think there's no doubt it has something to do with that pre-spawn, in addition to, dropping temperatures too.
Yeah, I've covered miles early in October, trying to find these these smaller streams where I'm fairly, certain, because I fish them throughout the summer months. There's not a ton of, mature fish in that zone, but come fall, you get in there right at the right time before what you're saying, all that stuff, all the reds start showing up, and you have mature fish in the system. Like they're in that waterway and they're gonna eat a streamer, they're gonna eat a big nymph, and timing that is fun. Like but it's hard. It's not easy to do.
I look forward to it. I look forward to that time. So Troutbitten listeners already know the crew's favorite beer is Broken Heel's Hazy IPA from New Trail Brewing Company. But our friends at New Trail are hard at work developing our next favorites. Each one is like a different fly pattern because some fit your current situation better than others. Like this one they call 24/7 because it's the beer we could drink 365, crafted to go anywhere, anytime. 24/7's light body and low alcohol make it a must-have when you've got day-long plans but still want full IPA flavor. Then there's Trail Marker West Coast IPA, inspired by classic pine and orange flavor. Trail Marker is brilliantly clear, nicely bitter, and available in 2 varieties, West Coast IPA and Imperial IPA. You can bet the Troutbitten crew will mix these styles into the cooler with Broken Heels. So check out newtrailbrewingcompany.com to find retailers near you or on the way to the river. So I want to tell you about one of the best ideas and coolest products I've seen enter our industry. Kling Fishing Products makes MagGrab magnetic fly patches to level up your organizational game on the water. MagGrabs are made in Montana and feature strong rare earth magnets that offer incredible holding power. You can attach them anywhere you need, from your hat to your pack, your cooler, your boat, the dash of your car, or the bed of your truck. Wherever you attach the MagGrab, you know your flies and tools are secure. New for this year is the MagGrab Rod Rack. The Rod Rack is a 2-part system designed to hold your fly rod securely during fly changes, fish releases, snack time, and any other situation where you might need to set your rod down for a minute. The base plate securely attaches to the butt of your rod with a strong rubber clasp, while the top magnet is easily attached to your waders, pack, or vest. Get them close and they click together. Your rod is secure. So check out Kling Fishing's full line of MagGrab products at klingfishing.com or ask for them at your local dealer and find the Kling MagGrab that works for you.
What were you saying, Deli?
Just a couple of points. I think our falls have been so low, let's say the last 5 years. The majority of our falls have been low.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we don't get that. Like I think what you're talking about, Matt, is like a migration to an area where they're about to spawn.
Yeah.
And so I feel like right now, at least let's say most of the time in the last 5 years in central PA in the fall, the water's been so low that I think the fish are mostly worried about surviving, and they're in the biggest holes. And so I don't feel like, but also kind of that same thing where I don't think that the majority of our rivers, they don't have to migrate miles to necessarily find spawning gravel.
Right.
They may migrate miles to spawn, where they were born, or maybe at the beginning, and this is what would be really interesting is if those brown trout, let's say it's July or it's June and there's a high water event, would they migrate to a pool that is adjacent to where they would spawn in the fall because they're they know that, based on most years that we've had in the last 5 years, there's not enough water to allow them to migrate to it, let's say in October.
So they're anticipating that, that obstacle.
or are they waiting until December when, the water table is more full and the streams are up, and then they're migrating and then they're spawning? I don't know. It'd be really interesting to tag some fish and see the whole year, like the movement of that fish the entire year, like a handful of them.
At some point, the water be getting too cold to spawn. Well, around here, we got the spring flow, so it's fairly consistent. But like, Matt, Amiga, at some point, your water's going to be, I'm just guessing, right? But
like, when does it go?
They got to get, right, there's a window of opportunity.
Like, when does it go below 40?
Yeah.
Like,
it can be
what's
quick.
the temperature, I
I'm
wonder?
saying, like, it can happen quick. And I go back to some of the studies they published out here. Low water, cold temps, caused shelf ice, totally boogered up the recruitment of brown trout out here, right?
That would wipe away some gravel. Let's say they did spawn successfully, but then the shelf ice comes or whatever, the anchor ice, shelf ice.
Screws everything up, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no question that nature has that, impact. That's why certain years, fish per mile, this year it's this, the next year it went down to this. Like all those things influence that. And if everybody's game commissions and fish commissions did the right thing, they would be monitoring that, every year to see like, hey, you guys have been experiencing a drought. We noticed the fish populations on River X were this the last 3 years. Then you can start correlating that. Oh, why is that? We had all that. Like we've had university studies happening, trying to figure out what happened, and they can pinpoint low drought years. And I'll try to dig up some of these articles to send them to you, but low water years are some of the most impactful to the recruitment of a certain age class of fish.
Interesting.
And so that might not catch up to you until 2 or 3 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right. But it catches up to you eventually. And then when you have compounding droughts, that's the worst. Right.
But I wonder if it's more impactful for your fish, Matt, is because let's say, like you're saying, like there's that short window in your area where you have a much harsher winter than we do. So maybe it's not as impactful for us in Pennsylvania because we have a more mild winter. And so we don't see that same, sharp spikes.
Sure. But you guys what you might lose is the substrate and the riffly water because of the low.
Yeah.
You lose like ground, right? Like you lose good spawning habitat, which could be worse. Like your temperatures are good, but if your stream is down 6 inches or 8 inches, right? Like then all of a sudden that stuff's exposed.
I'm wondering when, Dom, I'm terrible. Once it gets outside of, whether we should fish or not as far as the temperature of the river, I stop carrying the thermometer. Yeah. So like, I wonder what our river temperatures are today. And so
Agreed.
Are they at the 40s? Like I don't take it every day that I fish. And it'd be interesting
Last
to
I
see
took it was 45.
Okay.
It was like three weeks ago,
So I wonder how far,
I said, they weren't really spawning then. Yeah.
Right. So I wonder how far we have until it gets into the 30s in the majority of the core limestone streams in central Pennsylvania.
Yeah. A longer or a wider window, I guess we have.
Yeah.
One more question from me. What if the river blows out during the spawn? I've had lots of people ask me that.
I think
or let's say after the spawn.
I think it's good.
Yeah. I don't think it hurts them that much. The eggs. Yeah.
I've seen back to the whole, you got to go back to spawn at home base. I've seen where the river is there are no reds in let's say a dry area of the river. River gets to, I don't know, it goes from 100 CFS to 600 CFS. And then it drops back down and it's at, let's say 300. I will see reds in areas that were dry a week before. That's what makes me think they have to go back to home base, is because they're waiting for that elevated flow to go to.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What if the flow's good already and then they lay their eggs and then it gets severely blown out? Do you think that has a negative impact? dislodging any eggs or disrupting those?
I think it depends on how
those beds or nests.
Probably depends on how high.
How
like,
bad
are
is
you
it?
talking 2 times or 10 times the amount of water?
Yeah, because 10 times can start moving big pieces of gravel around.
Yeah.
Right?
Trees.
Move this gravel bar from over there, and those eggs are going to get dislodged, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and trees pushing around. Yeah, pushing parts of the riverbank.
I think it could have an impact.
I think it can have a small, I think about out here, right? Because we've run off every year. And, those rainbow eggs and the cutthroat eggs are dealing with peak runoff. And so it's not, I don't think it's as detrimental. Now, I think like a big flood event, sure. Like I know the 100-year flood event out here on one of our big freestoners really messed up trout populations. There's no question about it. But like typical high water events, like that's not like abnormal. I think fish can weather that.
Agreed. I feel like nature has a way of taking care of those normal or even not that far outside of normal events, right? When those eggs get down there in the cracks, they probably are all right. I've always thought that like the strike zone speed, now we're getting technical, but that cushion of water near the bottom, even you could have a lot of water on top, a lot of extra water, a foot or two of extra water maybe. And I feel like that cushion near the bottom is still going pretty much the same speed or slightly. That's
what I've always thought too. Unless it's like, I don't.
Then it's crazy.
Unless there's some
things.
Unless there's a tree that falls in that changes that. You know what I mean? Or like a big boulder gets shifted into that area. That changes.
I know, right? Yeah, that changes things. I like it. Hey, anything else, guys?
The one other, I guess maybe it's a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Matt, you talked about like some of the fish are migrating or some of the fish are spawning in the same river. I think it's kind of like a survival mechanism where not all the fish are going to migrate up tribs. Not all the fish are going to spawn in the main river. And so you kind of have, if there's an issue in any of those locations, your trout population is going to be safe because not everyone's doing the same thing at the same spot.
Good call. All right, there it is. The spawning process of trout. Now remember, one more time, we do not advocate fishing over spawning trout. In fact, we think it's a lousy, lame thing to do. And even if you make a few casts because you think no one is looking, karma and the trout gods will catch up with you, probably sooner than later. And you'll have bad luck on the water for 7 years. You'll probably lose your net, break your fly rod, and have endless leaks in your waders. Good for you. But in most watersheds, if you understand the spawning process, if you realize that trout probably use less than 2% of the river to actually spawn in, you can easily avoid spawning fish while still witnessing the process, also having the self-discipline to give trout their space. So again, check out our other podcast, episode 2 of season 9, Trout Fishing and the Spawn, for a complete picture on all of that. But regardless of whether you choose to fish or not, understanding perhaps the most important event in a trout's life will make you a more complete angler. Thanks for listening, everyone. Sir Austin Dando, will you read us out?
All right. So remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 1,500 articles, videos, and podcasts with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, now featuring the Troutbitten Tip Series, Fly Fishing the Mono Rig, and the Troutbitten Fly Box, all in collaboration with Wilds Media. You'll also find the Fish and Film videos in the Riverside series, and the new In Deep series, all on their own playlists on Troutbitten YouTube. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and leave a comment, because that really helps. Till next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
Good read out.
Hit out!
Solid.
Yeah, I looked at some science stuff,
Now I was like, whoa.
They're just a horny fish.